The night before Christmas settled over the desert like a held breath. Private Daniel Okoye crouched in a shallow trench, his rifle resting across his knees, the fine sand pressed into every single fold of his uniform. The stars overhead were sharp and merciless, scattered across a sky that just felt far too big for a place so filled with fear. Somewhere out there, beyond the vast darkness, the enemy waited. And somewhere else, half a world away, his family would be lighting candles, laughing softly, and setting an extra plate at the table, just in case he made it home. Daniel hadn't slept much in weeks. His mind was a constant loop of training, drills, and the faces of his comrades. Tonight, though, the silence was different. It was heavy, expectant. When the usual sounds of the camp finally quieted, he reached into his chest pocket and carefully pulled out a small, weather-worn Bible. Its cover was cracked from use, the pages thin and curling at the edges. His mother had slipped it into his bag the morning he left, pressing it into his hands with trembling fingers. "Read it when you feel alone," she had whispered, her voice thick with emotion. He hadn't touched it much since then, feeling like he needed to be tough, self-reliant. But tonight, alone wasn't just a feeling. It was a cold, hard reality. He opened it now, his fingers moving almost on their own, guided by a muscle memory from childhood Sundays, until they found the familiar passage. By the dim red-filtered glow of his tactical flashlight, he began to read. "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given." The ancient words from Isaiah seemed to rise gently from the page, steady and sure, as if they had survived worse nights than this one. Each syllable felt like a small stone dropped into the deep well of his anxiety, sending ripples of calm through him. The prophet's promise of a coming king, a prince of peace, felt so distant, yet so incredibly necessary right here, right now. A sudden, distant explosion thudded against the air, and Daniel flinched, his body tensing instantly. His heart raced, a familiar drumbeat of adrenaline. But his eyes stayed fixed on the words. He wasn't just reading them anymore. He was clinging to them. He turned a page, his thumb smudging the thin paper, and found himself in the Gospel of Luke, the story of the shepherds. He read about the angel appearing in the night sky. "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Do not be afraid." The phrase hung in the air, a direct command. He let out a long, shuddering breath he hadn't even realized he was holding. The fear didn't just vanish. It was too deeply ingrained for that. But its iron grip on his chest loosened. It was as if a heavy weight had been slightly lifted, allowing him to breathe a little deeper. He thought about the sheer vulnerability of it all. If God could choose to step into a world ruled by violence and fear, not as a conquering warrior, but as a fragile, helpless child, then maybe, just maybe, he could step into a battlefield too. Daniel looked out over the dark expanse of the desert. He imagined the shepherds, out in the fields, keeping watch over their flocks at night, just as he was keeping watch now. They were ordinary men, alert and tired, surrounded by darkness and the threat of predators. And God had met them right there, not in a grand palace, not in a place of safety and comfort, but out in the fields, in the middle of their mundane, difficult work. He saw himself in them, another watchman in the dark. A profound, quiet peace began to settle inside him, spreading through his weary limbs. Around him, the war remained completely unchanged, the biting sand, the palpable tension, the occasional distant echo of gunfire. But within his own chest, something fundamental had shifted. The scripture hadn't offered him an escape from the conflict, but it reminded him that peace was not simply the absence of conflict, but the very presence of God. It was a peace that could exist alongside the chaos, a quiet center in the storm. He slowly closed the Bible, the worn leather cool against his palm, and pressed it against his heart, right over his dog tags. "Emmanuel," he whispered into the cold night air, the word a prayer. God with us. It wasn't just a name from a story anymore. It was a declaration, a personal anchor in the middle of the shifting sands of war. He was not alone. As the first hint of dawn began to creep over the distant horizon, painting the desert in soft shades of gold and rose, Daniel stood his watch with a renewed strength. The night had been long and dark, but he had found a light that no darkness could extinguish. Christmas had come, not with festive carols or flickering candles, but with a quiet, powerful promise carried across centuries, that even in the darkest, most forsaken places, light still finds its way in. And for the first time in a very long while, as he watched the new day break over the dunes, he truly believed he would make it home. Thanks for watching. If you are moved by this story, make sure to subscribe for more content that inspires and uplifts. We'll see you in the next one.